Good day, beautiful people. I hope that you are enjoying yourself. And guess what? I am enjoying myself because today's my birthday. All right, so if you're going to listen to this on the replay, guess what? I'm still going to celebrate the rest of the year. So you can rest assured that I do accept gifts. You can send them on PayPal to Lady Business, and you can also send them on Cash App to Lady Business. Just want to let you know that. All right. Now, today we have a great show because we are going to have someone else that is a major key kind of speaker for the She Podcast Live. And so, for everybody that knows, we're going to start from a Give It to the People perspective. Our company is a mental wealth company. And so, we do curated conferences and training throughout the state of North Carolina and, pretty much anywhere else that wants to give us money, we'll come to. But we really focus on mental wealth, which is getting your mind right and your money right. And so we interview people that are BIPOC and women-owned businesses, and then also organizations that support them as well. So today, we are interviewing somebody that is really awesome sauce, and she is a business coach. And I'm a business coach. So it's always good to kind of see people's perspective on things and how they interpret what they do and the similarities. So I'm sure that we're going to have a great time today. So, Pam, come on up today. How are you?
Hello, good morning.
Ye-
I'm so well.
Yes.
I
Now,
love the mental wealth.
oh, the mental wealth is like the absolute best. Now, I wanted to pronounce your last name correctly, so I didn't want to interrupt anything with I hate when people mispronounce my stuff, but I wanted to say it, and I'm hoping I can put an accent on it and it'll sound amazing. But it's Covarrubias.
Yes, well
See, I wanted
done.
I wanted to sit and actually I practiced it so that I could say it real sexy like that.
Yes, well done, well done. First try, done. Nice.
Yes. Okay. So, Pam, give people a little bit of background. You have a podcast that's called Cafe Con Pam, and
Mhm.
then this way people get to interact with you. But give people a little bit of background and why did you even start podcasting in the first place?
Yeah, I started podcasting because I was traveling for work. I was going all over the country doing trainings and whatnot. And this is back in the day before podcasting was cool.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to find a way to kinda, like, feel like I was with someone, so I started listening to podcasts back
Hmm.
into, like, 2013, and back then, there were, like, 100 of them
Hmm.
only, now we have millions of them to choose from, and so I started listening to interview-based podcasts, and it really made me feel like I was in the room with them,
Hmm.
and so then I started searching for people like us,
Hmm.
and there were like, guests from time to time, but the majority was cis white men interviewing cis white men.
Hmm.
And I was like, where are people like me?
Hmm.
Where are the immigrants? Where are the people of color? Where are our stories? And it wasn't being done. And so
Hmm.
it took me 3 years to start until I finally was fed up waiting for someone to come up with it. And I started podcasting. So it was a selfish endeavor to
Hmm.
start because I wanted to hear the stories of us and get inspired. And it's been since 2016. And here we
Now,
are.
I love that. Now, I'm amazed that it took 3 years because you seem like the type of person that's just like, you know what? I don't see it. Let's make it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
what do you think was that trajectory of saying, okay, I'm listening, I'm tired, and now let me go ahead and create it? Why do you think it took 3 years in that time frame?
I think it was a lot of fear. I
Mm,
think when I notice that I get the nudges that are like, "This is a really good thing," I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know if I wanna jump into that because it might be
mm-hmm,
good," you know? And so that was the element that kept stopping me, and frankly, like, that's like, the mindset piece. On the practical side, nobody was teaching you how to podcast, and so there were very few resources,
mm-hmm,
and I gave myself when I was finally, like, ready I gave myself 2 hours of research, and I was like, "Whatever you learn in 2 hours, that's what you're gonna run with." And
oh,
the last thing right. The last thing that I needed was editing.
mm-hmm,
So, you know, people were sharing how to host your podcast, how to record your podcast, but nobody was really telling you how to edit the sound. And so I
mm,
went to dinner with one of my friends, just randomly. He lives in LA, I live in San Diego.
mm-hmm,
And it's one of those like, "I'll be in San Diego, let's meet up."
mm-hmm.
And at the end of the dinner, he was like, "So what's your next thing?" And I was like, "Well, I wanna do this podcasting or maybe, like, recorded interviews, YouTube show. I don't know what it's gonna look like, but I just
Mm-hmm.
want to ask people questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I just need one thing, which is editing audio." And he looked at me and he was like, "Did you forget what I do?" And he's a sound engineer.
Oh my God. So you see how that aligned? See?
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so he was my first producer, and he is who really pushed me to get it started, because he's like, like, you talk about everything else, but then when you talk about this like potential podcast thing, you just light up. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that there's fear, but there's also all this passion that you have behind it. So you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're going to stay talking about it. I won't let you do that. So he pushed
Mm.
me.
Do you
And
think
yeah.
that that fear is why you're a great business coach? Because I know that a lot of people probably come to you because they are scared of something, right? And so you having this experience, that was something specific, direct, and the time frame that it took. Do you feel like this is, what makes you a great business coach? And also, are you able to kind of cut the fear of other people maybe in half, once they come to you?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm able to relate a lot more. And I have so many stories that I share with people of like when I was scared and you had to do it anyway, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I cut their fear in half, but at least we worked through it,
Mm-hmm.
where we are able to acknowledge and see it and not let it linger for 3 years and then
Mm-hmm.
finally take action.
Yeah, no, that's great because there is my podcast last week was talking about the power of procrastination, and pretty much stating that procrastination is you kind of really focusing on what yesterday was and not really looking at what you need to do today, right? And so you have a thing where you kind of talk about the power of accountability. So how does that play out with you working with clients and you also being a podcaster?
Yeah, accountability. I'm a recovering procrastinator. So so with accountability, what I've realized, I have ADHD. And so my
Oh.
ADHD is very what my brain does, it tends to focus on everything else but what I need to focus on. And so procrastination is one thing. And one thing that I've learned, because I do a lot of work with nervous system regulation,
Mm-hmm.
is that procrastination is rooted in fear, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are procrastinating, our amygdala is in this fight or flight mode. And what we need to do is chill it out first, so regulate the nervous system, and then tell someone else that we're looking to do something, because it's easier to have integrity with someone waiting for you than to
Mm-hmm.
have self integrity. I mean, unfortunately, if we don't tell anyone, nobody's going to ask us about it. But if somebody else is going to ask you, did you do it? Is it done? Then you're like, ooh, I don't want to fail that person, which is easier. Like, you know, it's easier to fail someone else than to fail yourself, because nobody knows that you failed yourself. And so
Mm-hmm.
accountability, it's really powerful. There's a study that shows that when you set a goal, you have about 30-40% chance of making it happen. When you tell someone and you have a standing appointment with them and meet with them constantly and tell them your goals and your intentions and the progress, then your chances of actually completing it go up to 90%.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that. I mean, I love it. And I look at goals pretty much the same way, but just having that neuroscience perspective behind it, I think can make a huge difference. And I think that, I always tell people whenever I procrastinate, it's usually for my good. And
Mm.
and it's so weird because it's like, and tell me if you experience this. So I put this thing out the other day and I was talking about like the entrepreneurial urge to do everything and nothing at the same exact time, right? So that's
Yes.
kind of one of those things where it's like your mind wants to do so much. And then you feel like you also get paralyzed because you still have other things to do in that time frame. How do you kind of help people through that? Because I think that to me, when you're coaching somebody, they have a starting point and they have an ending point, but how they get there is going to be a little bit
Mhm.
different. So what are some things that maybe you could tell people that would help them to kind of get through that? I want to do everything, but I know I can't, but I still want to get stuff done and I have to get things done at the same time.
I love the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
I really think about, you know, the 80-20 rule is really powerful because it says 20% of your effort brings in 80% of your results. And so when we get all of these ideas, I mean, from a business standpoint, is what's your minimal viable product? How could
Mm-hmm.
we start with something that already works? Because I actually had a meeting with someone yesterday and she's like, okay, here's my ideas, blah, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it was like all the way to this global movement and it was going to be like this awesome thing that was going to change the world. And then I was like, okay, now let's bring it back like 20,000 steps, what's the next thing that you need to do to make that forward?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the one step? What is that 20% that you could do today that will
Mm-hmm.
bring in 80% of the results?
Mm-hmm.
And many times, I mean, what I've noticed in my own work is that the 20% is like 3 hours of my day.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of my
Mm-hmm.
day, I'm fiddling, really. I'm just finding busy work. But if I make sure that the 20% that I'm doing, it's really going to push the business forward, then I could just call myself served for the day.
Yeah, no, and I totally completely agree because I like to call it procrasta working. So I'm going to work on all of the other things that, I think I want to do. And it's not that you're not working, it's just that what is this specific goal, And so I started looking this year specifically I call this year the year of achievement for me. And so I said,
Mm,
let's celebrate all of the little things that get to the big things. And so even something like me, because I am a to-do list person. So I will give you a to-do list on top of a to-do list, and then I will check it off. I'll put it in my phone. I'll write it down. And I realized, yes, I accomplished those things, but I used to try to accomplish everything in one day, and then what that would do is drain me. Then the
yep.
next day, I was like, look, I'm not even trying to be productive today because I did so much yesterday. But I noticed that when I started saying, okay, well, look, I'm going to only get one or two things, maybe three things done today that are the big things, that I would be so much happier. And I am, right? I'm just so much happier now because I was able to accomplish those things today. Then if I do anything extra, I'm like, okay, girl, you better get it, right? And I'm like giving myself my own little high five. And I think that sometimes we just overwhelm ourselves. So if a person does that, how does that affect, like when you were talking about the nervous system, how can they help regulate? Because all of that, they're doing too much, yet not enough at the same time.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I think the first step to understanding is awareness. How do I feel? And I think we less now, but we come from a place of work being very much in the head. You have to think about it, you have to process it in your head, but really our body gives us a lot of signals about how we're feeling. And so the first step really is to tune into the body. How am I feeling? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel like I'm short of breath? There's a lot of signals that the body shows that we are unregulated. And what happens when we're dysregulated is that we can't make decisions for ourselves, because what happens when our amygdala is on fight or flight mode, it's really looking for survival. So our body, when we are on fight or flight, fawn, freeze, focus, some people call it now, is the body is looking to do whatever it takes to survive. Many cases is let's just not do anything or procrastinate or do the thing that's not the most important or what's pressing, what's giving me this anxiousness. I'm going to skip that. Let's do the procrastinating working that you talk about
Mm-hmm.
because it gives me more ease. And so the first step, check in with the body. How are we feeling? Go out for a walk. Like really remove yourself from the environment that's keeping you stuck. Many times we think that that's where the fiddling happens. We either like grab the numbing, whatever is going to numb us from continuing to feel. We're going to scroll or we're just going to check email. Email is a
Mm-hmm.
great numbing mechanism. And so what I recommend is once you check in and you're like, I'm in a loop where I can't get centered and really think clearly, change your environment. Go for a walk, do some jumping jacks, do a dance, turn
Mm-hmm.
on a song, do something that moves your body, and that can allow you to get back into this groundedness. It's very like somatic. I do love somatic work, but I think especially business owners, we're so much in the head.
Mm-hmm.
Small business owners, we're thinking constantly, and
Mm-hmm.
this is where we forget that we have a body that's holding us. Use it.
Yeah. Now you have a phrase, and so I'm gonna flip it around. But what do you consider the new productivity? Because I think that sometimes we feel like, oh, I'm doing something, but it's not necessarily productive thing. So what is the new productivity for people?
I think it's rest.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, I think, and rest doesn't have to be go take a nap.
Hmm.
Rest could be I'm going to sit on the couch and look at the sky.
Hmm.
I'm researching this. I don't have complete fact checked, but I I was taking a Peloton ride
Hmm.
and she said if you look up, your negative thoughts go away. And so I've been testing it and it actually works. So I'm like, look up in the sky. Just go outside. Like I have this porch in my house and I go outside and I just look at the clouds. And that gets you out of a loop. Because I call them like just mindless loops.
Yeah,
Because your
yeah.
brain is like thinking. And so if we allow our brains to rest, then we can get back into center. And also we want to think about a rhythmic stuff. So we have ultradian rhythms. On average, our brain can focus for 90 minutes on average. Now, ADHD brains like mine, probably like 60 minutes. So I'm either like 40 to 60 minutes or 3 hours of hyper focus. You know, it depends on brains like mine. On an average neurotypical brain, it's about 90 minutes. And so that's why the slowing down and the breaks are super important. And we tend to push ourselves. We're not robots. You know, we're human beings that feel and need to recharge our batteries. So sometimes rest is go drink a glass of water, eat outside of your desk, you know, like go play with your pets, give a hug to your kid.
I can clearly, fully, I mean, even though, we said we didn't have the numerics, we didn't have the research, but where I have felt the most comfortable is similar to you with my porch. So I call it the veranda, but same difference, right? And when I sit out there for the day and work, I feel like my productivity levels do increase. I love being out in the sun. I mean, as long as, of course, weather permitting, right? But I feel like that gives me a different type of energy. And then in here where we have our studio at, there is like a meditation room, and it's just a chair with a small little chase, right? So you can put your feet up, and when you look up to the ceiling, it's fake clouds up there, right? So it looks like you're outside, but you're inside. And so when you said that, I'm sitting here reflecting on somebody, obviously, even though you said we didn't have the numbers, but somebody thought the same thing. So if you're inside of an office all day long and you don't have, the opportunity, or your home doesn't have, you don't face the sun kind of thing, that could probably be, really impactful. And I know one thing I like to do when I try to focus is I like to listen to certain types of music, depending on where I need my focus to be. And so what I've learned, this is just a crazy thing, but on the TV, they have like a fire place channel. And all it does is play like the crackling of a fireplace. And it's so crazy, but like I can sit and I can focus to the crackling of a fireplace. So I
Nice.
think sometimes the what we're listening to and how, how we feel, like you say, can definitely impact, the things that we do. So with your session, because we're talking about all of this great things with the mind, the control, and being able to take accountability. If people say, well, listen, I'm going to come to your session for She Podcasts, what is your session about and what are the people going to get from it?
Yes, my session is about what I call Calladita Culture in Spanish. So it's the principle that we hear when we grow up. And when I share it, a lot of other cultures resonate with it. So when Latinas grow up, many of us, we grow up hearing, you look pretty when you're quiet. And so it's the
Ooh.
quieting of our voice I know, that gets, like, if we think about the Latina stereotype, it's quite submissive, or like the other stereotype is like the spicy Latina, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the Calladita Culture, I came up with the 7 principles of Calladita Culture after working with all my clients that keep us stuck in fear, quiet, submissive, and not really using our voice. And so what we'll talk about is we'll explore the 7 principles and decide how we're going to dismantle them and really stand in our power, own our voice, speak our truth,
Mm-hmm.
because the world needs our stories.
I love that. And I think, just from a coaching standpoint, how impactful do you feel like the things that you teach your clients then turn into, to me, like a tangible product that you can then replicate over and over again? Because these 7 principles, I see that as, a book. I see that as, a webinar series. I see it as so many different things, because I think that your perspective is definitely unique because you're talking about it from a cultural aspect, but then also from personal experience. So how much do your clients kind of influence the things that then you can turn into tangible products for others?
A lot. I think I I mean, I think as a interviewer now. I've done this for some time now. I've tuned in my ear to really listen to what
Mhm.
people say. And as a coach, you're trained to just hear, like be really listening all the time. And the principles came out of me really witnessing myself repeating things over and over and over and hearing the challenges that people were facing, whether it was in their own business or in their corporate space or in their family, and setting
Mhm.
boundaries and speaking up and all of the things. And so they totally influence in how I create work for them. And now clients now they're like, when are you going to do something for this? Because I need
Mhm.
it.
And isn't that great? Like when you then have them turning on and then saying, okay, well, go ahead and create me this new thing, right?
Yes.
That is a wonderful thing. Now, I want to touch on something that you said like way earlier in the conversation, because I think people may have missed it. But you said part of the fear that you had, and I'm sure this relates back to the clients as well, was that it might be good. And I don't know if anybody caught that, but I caught it. I wrote it down and I was just thinking to myself, oftentimes we speed ahead to start to create something. We tell a person about the idea, we do that part, but then it is up to us, the onus, to actually make it happen. So,
Mhm.
can you just touch on a little bit about the fear of it might be good?
Totally. So there's a quote, and I forget his name, but he said, "Fear and excitement come from the same place in your heart."
Mhm.
And I actually witnessed an MRI, I think it was, from emotions in the human body, and it's true. When someone's excited, their torso lights up. When someone's in fear, their torso lights up. The difference between fear and excitement is that when fear lights up, your limbs light up too, because we're ready to fight, flight, run
Mhm.
away. And so when I got the idea for the show, I felt that fear of, oof, am I going to share the stories of the, like, nobody's done this? What if it's really good?
Mhm.
So my fear has never been to fail. Never. My fear has been to success,
Mm.
which is like people talk about fear of failure. And I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't care
Yes.
about failing. I failed so many times in my life. I actually fear, am I going to be able to contain the success? That's my
Uh-huh.
fear. And so that's where when I got I'm like, "Ooh, what if it's really good? What if it,
Mm.
like, picks up? What if somebody really likes it? What if people actually listen to me?
Mhm.
What's gonna happen there?" And, I mean, it took a while, and even from a mindset standpoint, I was still doing it with, like, super scared. I sabotaged so many things that now in hindsight, I'm like, That was
Why?
fear."
Mhm.
You know? And even now, I'm at a point in my business where I'm closing a portion of my business that I realized that was manufactured by the message that people were giving me, but it really wasn't coming from what I wanted to create.
Mhm.
And the principles of Calladita Culture actually are what I want to create because I talk about
Mhm.
voice. And I started my podcast because I wanted to share my voice. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like,
Full
it just
circle.
took
Yeah.
almost a decade.
Yeah, and it's crazy how, and I swear to you the same thing. I knew it was going to be so many similarities. That's why I was like, I'm excited to just do this interview because the things that I said that I wanted, however long ago, those things I either have or are in the process of actually creating. And I noticed that once I started saying, this is what I want in whichever capacity, then the things now happen even faster
Yes.
than they would have happened before. And I think that it's just getting over that fear and just understanding that now, if I compare from 10 years ago in business to now, I just feel like, well, I'm not a no person. I mean, I'm a no person. I will say no to somebody quick. But I am a no, I'm going to go for the thing that to me should be a guaranteed yes, even if it's not a yes right now. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it was somebody, they were like, oh, well, yeah, we would like to sponsor, but, let's see. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then now they're like, oh yeah, now we want to sponsor. So
Mm.
it wasn't a no then. It was a let's wait and see. And I'm just like, sometimes you do have to prove yourself to people, even though you've done XYZ, but sometimes people are new to you. and they really need to see for themselves, you know. And so I've been privy to a lot of things over the last year that have really put me in this state. Like when you talk about the new productivity and you say rest and relaxation, I'm always of that mind. But just I think being calmer in its whole
Mm-hmm.
totality of that, and not rushing. It's funny how once you calm down, the opportunities seem to speed up. So when you talk
Right.
about, like, you know, the fear of being successful, I just feel that resonates with me so much. And so, you know, yeah, I love the way that you said that. Like, that is a powerful thing. And I think if more people understood that, you know, maybe they wouldn't procrastinate so much, you know, maybe they would
Mm.
be accountable. So if there was a person that said, well, listen, Pam, you know, I'm interested in, you know, I love what you're talking about. I would love to have you coach me. What kind of person are you looking for that might want to be a client?
I typically work with first generation women and femmes,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm redefining first gen,
Mm-hmm.
because many times we think that first generation is first generation immigrant
Mm-hmm.
kid, like your parents came here and then you're here first. But I think first generation is first generation of your family to own a business, first generation to go to college, first
Mm-hmm.
generation to get an executive position in a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm a business coach and I have this heart for small businesses. But now that I'm really honing into Calladita and the principles of using our voice, I think everyone needs that. And I'm working on different programs for college students, professionals, and small businesses with
Okay.
the principles. But it's really first gen, whoever considers themselves a first generation, in whatever it is that you're breaking through,
Mm.
because, we'll
Yeah.
just cross those barriers.
Yeah, but I think that no matter what, even when you're talking about first gen, like, they're still going to go through the same types of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So that fear portion, that procrastination portion, that needing accountability, I think that you still need those in all of those different areas. And so the commonalities there definitely make sense as far as your definition of first gen. So I love it. Now, if you were going to leave people with, you know, like a final thought, some type of inspiration, motivation, you know, something like that, what would you say to people who are just like, look, I'm interested in podcasting, I'm interested in starting a business, you know, I'm interested in doing something different than what I'm doing now because I do want to make those changes in my life? What would you say to those people?
I would say do one thing today that can get you closer. One. Just start with one, give yourself 5 minutes. If you are done with the 5 minutes and you're like, you know what, I can keep going,
Hmm.
then keep going. But do one thing a day for the next 10 days to get
Hmm.
started. Because by the time you're done in 10 days, you'll be 10% ahead.
Hmm.
So, one thing a day, don't focus on the end result that is overwhelming. That's what's keeping us really like behind, because we're thinking like, oh, I have to do all the things. Do one thing today. Just
Hmm.
focus on the one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with it. So for me, I'm just like, this is expert level advice. This is definitely the stuff that people need to hear, because I think they get so crippled, so paralyzed, so overwhelmed. And, you know, it sounds really simple, but then they have to figure out what's the one thing, right? Or then, oh my God, it's really more than one thing. So they just, you know, kind of talk themselves into a hole, and just do something, right?
Just write
Something
the
that's going to
list.
get you closer, you know, and that'll make a big difference. Well, I am thrilled, because this was a great conversation. And so everybody, when you go to She Podcast, you will be able to have a little bit of this magic that Pam has brought us today. And so the good thing now is that it will be online as well, which means that if you are going to increase your level of participation, then you'll be able to watch things on replay. So we strongly suggest that you invest in She Podcast, in women podcasters, BIPOC podcasters, because we are here And we do have a voice, like Pam said, and we definitely want you to listen to our shows and share them with other people. So please continue to do that. And Pam, I want to thank you so much for being on today. And I want you to stay classy, San Diego.
Yes,
I just was so waiting to
always.
say that, right? Like, I love some Ron Burgundy, so I was so waiting to say stay classy, San Diego. But I was like, I'm gonna leave it to the end just in case. So yeah, so that's wonderful. All right, so everybody, if you're watching the replay, we give it to the people. You know that you can still leave comments, so feel free to do that, and we share those afterwards. And Pam, just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. This is fun.
Okay. Everybody else, make sure you always show and continue to give it to the people. Bye, guys.